Today we need to make some serving trays, like these. To be exact, we need to make 9 of them. So we are going to batch out these on the CNC. So let's dive into it and go through the entire process. First up, we're selecting our timber, the foundation to any great woodworking project. It's all about finding the right balance between grain, texture, and durability, which is way easier said than done. We want to make sure we get everything flat and milled up properly here, as that's going to make the entire process so much easier. We're just going to randomly mix up our slats to give us a nice looking board before we apply the glue. You want to make sure you're using a waterproof, food-safe glue for this, as you don't want to have any problems later on. It's not a good look when a client or family member calls you and said, "Hey, your project's falling apart." Another tip is to make sure you keep your boards as flat as possible during the glue up to reduce the need for flattening and sanding later, and it'll also allow you to maximize the thickness of your boards. With our pieces glued up, it's time to flatten and sand. I like to sand everything up to about 120 grit at this stage. You don't need to stress too much, as we're going to give it a final sand later on. Let's jump inside, switch gears to the digital side of this project. As we're going to be using the CNC to carve these out, we're going to need to 3D model them in some form of CAD. Our choice is Fusion 360 because it's free and very, very powerful. Very painful to learn, but very powerful and free for the hobbyist. My favorite thing about this step is the fact that this is where you can let your creativity out. You can go for something basic, something complex. You can really nut out what you're trying to achieve to get the best result before wasting expensive material. I'm going to skip over the nitty-gritties of this because Fusion 360 is not for everyone and you may be using different softwares. But if you are interested, we will link a full tutorial in the description where we cover off the design work in great detail. So check that out after this video. Sick of wasting hours designing trays for your CNC? The Maker's Nexus CNC library does the hard work for you. It's loaded with ready-to-cut files that save you time and boost your output. And here's the kicker. We're adding fresh designs every single month. Money boxes, wall art, and heaps more. Whether you're a hobbyist or selling at markets, this is a total game changer. Hit the link in the description and start making more faster. Now we're all set to get cutting on the CNC. There's a whole heap of ways that you can secure your stock to your CNC. I generally use a combination of cams, hold downs, or double-sided tape. Make sure you use carpet tape. It is so much stronger than regular double-sided tape. We're using a Torquata bowl and tray bit for the inside of the trays. I love these bits as they leave a nice rounded edge at the bottom of the trays rather than a sharp 90-degree cut. While the CNC is carving away, let's talk about some common issues that people find when using their CNCs. One of the biggest problems I see newcomers to the CNC world is not understanding their machine. A lot of the information out on the internet is about industrial sized machines, and most of us woodworkers, myself included, only have a hobbyist CNC. Mine might be 2.4 by 1200, but the capacity of the CNC in terms of strength and power is still a hobbyist CNC. So understanding your feeds and speeds, what I mean by that is the speed your cutter is spinning at, as well as the speed your machine is moving at, is vital. All I can say is practice and make test cuts and record the information you get. The more honing in you can do, the better you're going to understand your machine. For example, we're cutting hardwoods today. I'm using a different feed and a different speed than I would if I was carving out MDF because it's a different density. It's going to wear and move a lot different between the two types of timbers. Play around with the feeds and speeds, start slow, and work out what works for you and your machine and your cutters, because every cutter is going to be different. If you're finding this helpful, smash that like button to let us know. After the trays are finished, we're going to swap over to a 6mm down cut to cut out the trays. The reason we use a down cut bit instead of an up cut bit is it leaves a nice clean edge along the top perimeter. One thing when using your CNC, unless you're holding down with double-sided tape, you're always going to end up with tabs or a thin bit of material because you don't want to cut the whole way through. Otherwise, it's just going to fly off. So I like to clean these up by cutting them off with a jigsaw or multi-tool. Then, because I just leave such a thin slither of material on the base, all I do to clean it up is give it a round over. Because I'm going to round over the trays anyway, so I don't need a flush trim then round over. Just go hit it straight with the round over, and that will flush trim and round over your corners in the same process. With our trays carved, it's time for the finishing touches. Start by sanding all the way up to 180 grit. You'll need to water pop these trays, so give them a light misting of water before allowing them to dry and then re-sanding with 180 grit. If you skip this step, the first time they are washed, it's going to feel like you haven't sanded them. Now let's talk finish. We like to soak our trays in food-safe mineral oil for around 2 hours before allowing them to air dry on a rack or a cloth or whatever you've really got to allow it to air dry. Then we apply a homemade beeswax butter to bring out the sheen and give it an amazing honey aroma and protect the trays. And there you have it. From a simple bit of timber to a functional, gorgeous gift for a loved one or a client, depending on what you're trying to achieve. From here, you can use your CNC to add personalized engravings. But in our case, we're going to use a laser because we've got one and it's going to be a lot quicker for what we're trying to achieve. And as I said, got to do 9. And for that, I'm using my go-to budget laser. It's fast, reliable, and perfect for projects just like this. If you want to check it out, I've dropped the link in the description below. If you've enjoyed this build and want to see more CNC and laser content, project tips, and ways to actually make money doing this, check out the next video right here. I'll see you there. Cheers, guys.